It's just love moving through us. And so it's like, yes, these are my gifts, but ultimately I choose to use them in a way of service for humanity. Even though I'm like, I can track this and do that, it's less about that and just knowing that God is working through me and how can I be of service. So even if it's just emanating a certain frequency next to somebody at the grocery store, just embodying unconditional love.
Are you ready for a show that actually shifts you? With real, raw, honest conversations about what it takes to become the most embodied version of yourself. And are you ready to remember that the world really does need your medicine? This is the podcast to awaken that. I can hear a calling. Because we all feel our higher self pulling us to our next expansion. But the only way to really get there is by sharing our stories together. So welcome to the World Needs Your Medicine podcast. This is the place where we can have real conversations about the things that have worked for us, the lessons we've learned, the hard struggles along the way, and the things that have shifted us into the versions of ourselves we are now. Here on the show, you'll hear from some of the most incredible guests that have transformed their lives using the exact tools they talk about and offer inside each episode. I'm so honored to share this with you, and I can't wait to dive deeper, because when you see the power of what others have created, you believe you can create it too. And that's all we are really trying to remember, because the world really does need our medicine, and it starts by finding it within yourself. I'm Lauren Eliz Love, and let's dive into the show. Thanks for being here. Hello, my cozy lovebirds. Hi. Well, welcome back to another episode of the World Needs Your Medicine podcast. I am dropping in with you today on this cozy Tuesday morning. So excited for today's conversation. So centered in this dialogue that I feel so honored to share with you. And I thought today I would just take a minute to express and share what's been moving through me, because I feel like today's episode is nothing but divinely timed. You ever have that happen where you're like, I don't know, for those of you who are like coaches or mentors, teachers, guides, where you have some, even like a therapist, you have someone sitting in front of you who's going through something and you're like, well, I'm going through that right now. How do I support you? It's a very interesting thing, and I talk a lot about this with students inside of my entrepreneurial-based programs, where when you're a conduit of your work and a medicine carrier of some kind, a healer, a light worker, a space holder, you're going to have these experiences where what you're moving through is really the initiation of preparedness for someone right in front of you. And sometimes that person who's struggling with something is there right when you are going through something too. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a mirrored experience, not always easy. And I felt like today, as I was getting ready to release this episode and share it with you guys, I felt like, wow, this study that Carissa Johnson's talking about on today's show is moving through me right now. Like, I will say with true honesty, trusting God is not always easy. It's not always easy. I've been through just like a very difficult, challenging upgrade in my life. And this season, there's an incredible astrologer who's coming on the show. And you're going to hear from her later on, a few weeks from now when we release. She did a reading for me and she was like, hey, Lauren, I don't know if you know this, but your whole entire life timeline is stopping in June and a whole new one is beginning for the next, like, I think she said like 15 years or something. And I've been feeling this really big quantum shift pull in an entirely new direction of my life. So I thought I would just kind of share it with you guys. I rolled out of bed, put on my headphones, pressed record. So in real time, you know, I want to let you know that like this devotional study of learning to trust God is an ever unfolding divine initiation. For a long time, I did not like the word God, because in my religious upbringing, God was kind of this man with a white beard on a hill that was sitting in a hill of clouds, that would tell you if you were doing right or wrong. And, now I see God as this like non-gendered frequency. It's a man, it's a woman, it's also just a code of love. It's a, non-descriptional energy. And as I've connected more deeply into my spiritual connection in this way, I have found that I've been pulled in different directions that, I'm not really quite feeling ready to experience. And I think that's a really important point for any of you guys listening on the show. Like, you want to grow, you want to stretch, you want to expand. You also have to let die. Like, new birth and being reborn cannot exist without death. So in this phase of what is June, July for me, I've been really letting go of like this old archetype within myself and this old identity of being a social media entrepreneur, and really wondering like, well, what is next? And the pull that I've been feeling in my body to like move in a new direction has obviously resulted in me putting all of my courses into the Sanctuary app, which, by the way, we start Body of Wealth program on July 15th, and the doors will close then. So if you want all my programs, the Sanctuary app is where it's at. And I did a live stream on Sunday for the community in the app where I was talking about, just how this gratitude of life and the way that we want to feel grateful, requires us to walk in this really unexpected, unprepared way sometimes. I've been feeling this very deep pull to nature, and I've been leaning into it. And I've been, okay, how am I going to make money off of this? I'm gardening now. Like, no. God is pulling me to the earth. I'm going to listen. I'm going to plant my seeds. And, and I've been really just showing up to like spend a lot of time in the garden and start really asking like, what does my property want to be? And like, what does the land need? And I have no idea, well, I kind of have an idea where it's going, but, we're going to build a dome on our property in 2027 in the spring. I'm going to start doing ceremonial work on my land. And that feels just so big and so new. And I'm in kind of this like in-between mode here where I'm like, well, like what's happening between now and then? Like, just this preparedness is missing. And, I feel like this is really important to share, especially for today's conversation, where you are going to leap in ways that you do not understand. You're going to follow intuition in ways that don't make sense. You're going to have to lean in to become that deeply spiritual, connected person that you really want to be. It requires blindness. It requires faith, right? Faith is walking blind on the external, but clear on the internal. And so this conversation just feels so beautiful today. So I'm really, really excited to share it. Carissa Johnsen, you guys, one of my dearest friends. She's on the show today. I love this woman. She and I don't really get to spend too much time together. We do connect in person and do spiritual work together, every so often. It's like a few times a year or like every other year. And every time we're in person and we're praying, I just feel this deep resonance with her soul that like, wow, what an incredibly beautiful person, like inside and out, just so devoted to her heart, so devoted to God, so devoted to her life path. And her story today, I feel like, is going to be so inspiring for anybody out there who's really wanting to do really big things to connect to their channel and connect to their gifts. So Carissa Johnsen, we're going to pull up her beautiful little bio because I'm just going to share what I know and love about somebody, but I feel like I want to do her justice. So Carissa Johnsen has an MA in psychology. Okay. So she's got her master's in psychology, but, more than that label, right? She's an embodied mystic and oracle. And her life path is really about devoting her work to restoring women's relationships within their divinity and their body, right? So she really teaches how to use the body as this tool to connect to divine energy. And her work draws on psychological training, ancient traditions across cultures, and weaving timelines of, what we would refer to as like timeless wisdom and embodied practice. So for over a decade, Carissa has been guiding women through spiritual awakenings, deepening their intuitive authority, tapping into their creative power, and learning how to really have a divine relationship with God. So in this story today, which, it feels like a story because I wanted to have her on the show to talk about this experience she had that was like, oh, sister, we have to talk. So the backstory here is that Carissa made this really, really brave decision. I think this was like last year, I'm losing track of time, but she made this decision. She was being pulled to like a spiritual quest of some kind, and she decided to sell all of her belongings, which is crazy to think about, right? She's just like, I'm going to get rid of everything. And she sold everything and went on this very long trip to a ton of different sacred sites to deepen her connection with God all over the world. So this was like a spiritually centered eat, pray, love quest, if you will, but like all about part 3, just all the spirit. And the story she tells about this on the show, I knew I wanted to have her because when I talk about my sabbatical, going to Sedona, Arizona for a year and doing my spiritual healing work and my initiation at that time, I get so many questions about that. Like women want to know, how do I go and have this whole beautiful healing experience, and how did you do it? So you're going to hear 2 stories today, right? A little bit of mine, and also as Carissa shares the things that she had to navigate, how she, let intuition guide her every single step of the way, how she let go with trust, how to walk in that relationship with faith. There's so much potent medicine in her conversation. And later on in the episode, she shares a lot of her education and her wisdom around how to cultivate a strong relationship with intuition. So a lot of women, in my experience as well as a facilitator, are very shut off from their intuitive knowings in their bodies because we've been conditioned to not listen to our bodies, but that's where intuition lives, right? So she shares a lot of really beautiful tips and suggestions and practices, and offers some really good medicine at the end of the show, like ways to connect. So for all of you guys who want to learn more about Carissa, we're going to put all of the links in the show notes. You can go ahead and check them out. And she has this like beautiful meditation that she's offering as well. I hope that's included in the show notes. You can go ahead and take a peek and enjoy this episode. Like, let it be medicine for you. I'm certainly going to re-listen to it after this goes live. And I hope for anybody who's out there, trying to just feel like you're being guided, like the direction of your path. Knowing is not about seeing. Let's just leave it at that, right? So go ahead and enjoy today's beautiful episode of the World Needs Your Medicine podcast. Thank you, Carissa, for being on the show. I love you. Enjoy this one, guys. I'll see you soon. Interesting. When you start like recording podcasts with your friends and you're like, I want this conversation to be like so real and so great. And we're already like having a conversation, and then we have to press record and like shift the energy. But like, I'm just really excited to talk to you. It's been so long.
No, I know. What a journey we've all been on, and it's so sweet to drop in. So I'm like glad we're like, no, let's just hit record, because when we go in, it's like hard to come back out of the portal and then like get back to like the, like let's record. So we're in, we're here.
Yeah, we're here. This is like the best way for me to spend a Friday, honestly. I feel like there's something about your frequency, your energy that's just always so sisterly for me. Like I can just talk to you for a really long time. And I wanted to bring you on the show because you just went on this really crazy wild ride of like going on a solo soul spiritual quest. Like, I don't know if you have decided to name it, what you would call it. Um, but yeah, so cool. Like, welcome back to the USA, girl.
Ooh, girl, I am still integrating that journey. And I don't know that I've given it a name either, but what I will tell you was that it was a real reclamation of like the full self, like real deep soul retrieval work, really deep anchoring more into my feminine and just like remembrance of who I am as a soul, so beyond who I am in this life, which was its own initiation because I think a lot of my journey has been disentangling from labels and out ways I've outsourced my power to things that are like vanity metrics or whatever. So this was really re-experiencing who I am as a woman and as a soul. And I'm like still integrating that. I'm like, what happened? I haven't really I've talked with friends here and there, but I haven't done a podcast on it. So it'll be fun to drop into the space and see what comes through.
Wow. Oh, so we're getting like the official
This is
juicy.
the official, yeah, we're getting the full download to whatever capacity you want,
Right.
and it's always good, so we'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm here for it. I felt a really deep pull to have this dialogue with you because one of the very common questions I get when I talk about my time in Sedona, how did you go on a sabbatical? Like you were gone for 9 months. That's a long period of time. And did you follow a retreat schedule? Who did you sign up with for this sabbatical? And, how do you do it? And so I just felt like the two of us needed to come together, yeah, to kind of riff on our experiences. And I wanted to ask you a ton of questions. Like, first and foremost, when did you get the idea that you even wanted to do this? And maybe you could tell the audience listening, like, what did you do? What did you do?
I'm still asking myself that question because it was such a multi-dimensional experience. Like, what actually happened? So, a little bit of a backstory was like, I think a lot of us have been going through a real initiation in our own way these last few years, just really accessing our multidimensional self, like embodying it in the 3D world and like how we show up in all of it. And I had gone through an initiation that really asked of me to like let everything go. So I know about my journey, but I'll share a little bit of context around like, having a near $1 million business and then just feeling like everything fell apart and then going to work for that conscious media company and like really I don't actually know if you know some of that stuff, but I
I
went
know
and
that you,
worked.
yes, continue and share because I know that you went and worked at that particular organization, but I don't know what happened after that. No
Yeah.
details.
Yeah. So I went and worked at a really amazing conscious media company, and I'll shout them out because I love them. It's Gaia. And, it was really interesting being so external and so forefront, so for many years with my coaching practice, and then going really deeply inward, excavating, and then working behind the scenes at a company that I really loved. And I had felt, and I share that because it's like I felt like something was brewing, something was emerging. At this point, I had worked with the company for about 2 years, and I could feel like my soul agreement with them was coming to completion. And the time that I had spent excavating, deconstructing, stabilizing, and even during that time, I was still doing things with them. I was like hosting events with them, I was taking on clients here and there, but I wasn't fully back in my Dharma. I was just a little bit more behind the scenes. So I had felt something was really emerging. And I was living with a sister at the time, and I just kept telling her, because one of my gifts is I can really track energy very well. Like I can track
Hmm.
timelines, I can track patterns, I can just feel the field. And I also receive like psychic messages audibly. So I kept feeling like something's brewing. There was a lot of discussion around people going to Burning Man, and I was just like, that doesn't feel right. And I kept getting visions of me going to sacred sites. And I knew that that was going to be a part of my path, but I just didn't know when. And I was getting ready to quit my job. And I remember starting to figure out, like, okay, well, if I were to do that, what would I do? And it felt so exciting for me to be like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to go to these sacred sites. And then, of course, the human part of me is like, what? Like, you got to work, you got to, be in the
Bills.
3D, build, build your audience, do the thing. And I was like, okay, like I hear that. Like that makes sense for sure. Maybe I won't go to the sacred sites now. Maybe there will be a time that's better. Maybe there'll be a time where I have more resources or it's clear or whatever. So I quit my corporate job because I felt like that needed to happen. So I made that decision without having like replaced anything. It was
And
just
you
like
didn't
this.
know really what was coming next. You just kind of were
No.
releasing and making space. We need to
Yeah.
talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. I think a lot of us wait, and I've done that too. It's like we wait until we have the clarity to do the thing when often, Spirit always tells me, no, you take the step and you go first and you create the space and then it all comes in. So I'd love to talk about that because that's been a real practice. So,
Ooh.
yeah.
It's scary, right? Like we can pause here and maybe just kind of hold a moment for this because
Yeah.
I had a very I mean, the way that you describe your experience is just very beautiful. And like, this was happening, and I was realizing and getting the downloads, and I just did it. And my experience was really treacherous when I got pushed to go do the experience. Like, my health was deteriorating. I was living in misalignment continuously for a long time. So, like, you listened, you're like, oh, here's the pull, I'm going to go. And for me, it was like I wasn't paying attention and everything was pushing me to the point where I almost broke and then felt the pull to go on this kind of quest. But yeah, you were courageous about it. Was there like a sense of fear in the giving up of the control, having had a career that was so stable? What did you have to move through to find the courage to be able to be like, okay, I'm ready?
Yeah. Thank you for that. I would say that I primarily listened this time because the last time I didn't. So in 2020, that's when my business was really taking off, like sold out practice, team, retreats, all of that. And Spirit was like, you need to like take a break. You need to rest. You need to disentangle from some of this. And I didn't. And
Mm.
similarly, I had a lot of burnout, maybe even some adrenal fatigue. My health was declining. I felt really unsatisfied with life, even though everything on paper looked really well.
So we were
You
going
know?
through that at the same time, the 2020.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
you
this
got
time I
your
was like,
rewrite.
I gotta listen because the last time I didn't, and I struggled for years, and I was like, like everything fell apart very quickly, and was like, you have no choice. So it was like the choiceless choice of surrender, or suffer. So
Mm-hmm.
I knew that this time something I was going through a different initiation. It didn't feel as like disastrous or hard. It just felt like you're gonna go do this thing and this is part of something that you need to do for your soul evolution. So I was like, okay, I trust more because that experience really cultivated that level of trust that I have with myself, my body, my gifts, God. So this time around it would landed more. I'm like, oh, tracking kind of the same energy, but I don't feel like my life is falling apart. It actually feels like I'm getting an upgrade.
Yeah.
So can I still just let go of what I think I need to be doing? So it did require a lot of courage. I think that it's never truly easy. My experience of working with spirit and working in the unseen realms is that it doesn't necessarily speak in logic.
Never.
Never, so it takes a
Never.
real it does take a lot of courage. And I did have to go through the fears of the unknown of like, what if I surrender this and everything falls apart again? I think I had a little bit of PTSD of like, am I going into the darkness again? Because I was down there for years and it needed to happen. I'm so grateful for that journey. I reclaimed a part of me that is unfuckwithable
Yeah.
from that experience.
Oh,
Like
for sure.
everything's falling apart. I'm like, I could get through anything now because I lost everything,
Yeah.
but in order to gain my true self and everything else that needed to fall away. So,
Mm. Yeah. Well, I mean, so it's interesting that we're talking about this because yesterday I was in this kind of cosmic joke reflection about this understanding of consciousness where I was thinking about not Bruce Almighty, but Evan Almighty, where he has to go, Steve Carell has to go and like build the Noah's Ark,
Noah's Ark.
essentially, like in the middle of, and it's like the most ridiculous thing and it makes no sense. And, it's just so metaphorical to, I think, how spirit does work, where you get pulls. Like just recently, I'm I'm not sure where I'm supposed to live. I'm not sure what's happening next in my own timeline, but I got this really strong download that I was supposed to tend to my land and put a 6 meter yurt tent on my property. So I'm like Noah's Ark. That's why it was coming to my mind. I'm like, I don't know what's next. I don't know why I'm doing this, but this is what I'm pulled to. But that's, to me, that's just like such a simple thing compared to you, where like you had to, you got rid of your apartment, you sold all your things. How long were you away for when you went on this quest?
Yeah, so that was the thing. It was like once I made the decision, I got the next step, and it was like sell all of your stuff.
Oh,
And then 2 days later, so I'll give a little synchronicity and then I'll go into that. I knew that I was on the right path because I was about to sell everything. I'm like starting to list stuff on Marketplace. And a friend comes over who just moved in town and he's like, I got to furnish a whole house. And then I'm like, do you want my stuff? And he's like, he looked at it. He's like, yeah, I'll buy it all. He bought like 85, 90% of everything I was selling. So it just was that like real synchronicity. So after that help
wow.
happened, I just kept feeling like, okay, something's about to happen. And then I had a dream. And that was the real moment for me where I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going somewhere, because in the dream, I'm sitting on the floor and I'm looking at a suitcase. And at this time I had felt like I'm going to be going somewhere. I just don't know where, because why would I sell everything? So I'm sitting on the floor in the dream and I'm looking at my suitcase and there's like everything packed. And I remember looking at myself like from above myself, and I'm down. I'm like putting my head down. I'm like, I can't go. I can't go. And all of a sudden I look at my phone and I'm able to read what's on my phone. And normally, unless you're lucid, you can't usually read messages on a phone unless it's like a sign from spirit. It's not your subconscious processing. It's usually like a sign or you're lucid. And so I pick up my phone, and on my phone it says, better make sure that the airline attendants will still let you on this flight. You need to go. And then I looked at my phone and I'm like, okay, I'm going. So I shoved everything in my bag and I got to the airport, and then I got on the flight. So I forgot, I missed a thing. I had already felt like I was going to be going to Greece, because I had remembered, like, I'd gone through this whole thing where I realized my family's Greek, doing a
Yes.
DNA test with my family. I think I shared that with you before. And so there was this feeling like I need to go to Greece. And then so when I had that dream, it was like, okay, I need to go to Greece. And so at this time I had just decided, okay, I sold all my stuff. I'm packing my stuff. My last day at my job is like a week away or 2 weeks away or something like that. Like, I'm going to Greece. So then it was just like, I'm going to Greece. And then I had a sister who had already gone to Greece. And I was talking with her and I kept telling her, like, I see you there. She's like, I'm not going to Greece. I'm like, okay. I'm like, all right, I'm just going to plant that seed. I'm going to leave it. 2 days later, she messages me and she's like, this spiritual teacher that I had worked with is actually hosting a pilgrimage in Greece in a couple weeks. I think this is for us. And I just tuned in and it was like such a yes. So within a matter of weeks, like everything was packed up, everything was sold, and we were heading on a pilgrimage. And I had a one-way ticket. I didn't book anything else at this point because I didn't know I was going to be spending the next like 7 or 8 weeks in Europe traveling. I just booked a one-way, like was like, okay, I'm dropping my dog off at home, and that was it.
This is so, how do you, girl, how have you become, this is going to be a loaded question. How have you become the type of person that can trust spirit so deeply, surrender, give up control, let go, follow suit with no understanding of what's next? How does one become that?
This is like, I could probably do a whole masterclass on this, and I actually do. But it's because that's what I teach people. I teach people how to listen to God, how God speaks through us from within. Like, a lot of my work is based on intuitive development, accessing higher intelligence from going within our body. So I'll answer this in a couple ways. Number one, it hasn't always been easy. I think that initiation that I went through in 2020 rocked me in such a way where I had no choice but to go in, because I kept outsourcing my power. I kept being in fear and I kept getting knocked back down, knocked back down. And so it's like you get initiated really until like you sense and you can track energy. Like when you become masterful with energy, you can really feel when timelines or relationships are expiring, how spirit speaks through your body. So I'm very clairaudient and I'm very clairsentient. So I have like a very clear like sense of, okay, something's happening, and I get auditory messages. So I think it takes understanding how your channel really works. I think it's a practice, just like anything else. Every day I sit at my altar in devotion, checking in, tracking my energy, like tuning into different timelines. So I would say it's really about getting initiated in some ways, and you will know when you're being taken into that place. And a lot of us have been, and a lot of us will be, because I do think that this will be the most important skill set in the coming years. With everything that's happening with AI, I think our intuition and our psychic faculties will be undoubtedly the most important intelligence that we have. And so I think it's that. I think it's developing the skill set and being in devotion to it. And then it's making a lot of mistakes in the process and just actually tracking it, like if you want, to be really practical with it, because even though I play in these realms, I'm very, very practical. I like to make the mystical practical. It's like, how do you experience the energy when you make decisions and you notice it wasn't aligned? What did you experience? What did you feel? So it is like a real understanding of the way that spirit communicates with you, the way that you receive energy, the emotions you feel. It's a true art. It's a mystical art that has been lost, and I think it's one that is very inherent to us and one that we're really reclaiming. And so in the most simplistic way, I think it takes a lot of practice and a lot of devotion to understand how spirit communicates to you, because I don't think that everybody receives communication in the same way. Actually, I know that because I've trained so many people, and I've gone through this myself. And I think a lot of people think it's a gut instinct, when some people just know, claircognizance. Some people get visions, some people hear messages, some people sense things. It's a variety of these different faculties that haven't been online in so many years. So that's the most simplistic way, and I can give practices for sure, because I think that that's probably really helpful for the audience. But I would say it's a devotion and it's a practice, and I think that in my opinion, it's the most important skill set that we'll need in the coming years.
I relate to your language of understanding within yourself, because I too, similarly, it's the auditory, being able to hear, like when somebody in my life passes, it's happened 3 or 4 times in my life where, after they transition, in my dream, I will hear them on the phone, and I'll have a whole phone call conversation with them in my dream, dialoguing with them back and forth. And it's very alive. And in my regular world, when I'm trying to decide or discern, I can always get that auditory response when I'm really tapped in and I'm really, connected to myself. But I mean, this is kind of taking a detour of our dialogue, but it's worth noting we live in a world that pulls us away from those psychic senses continuously, with the food that we consume, with the media that we intake, with the noise that's always around. So I would like to circle back to that at the end and just hold space for you to share some of the practices to help people cultivate, because it's super, super important.
Yeah, I would say one thing with that really quick, just as a sign, it's like, it is an embodiment. Like the more we can get into our body, I would say the more we can access these skills naturally. And it is never that we are disconnected, it's just that we're distracted. And our bodies are just filled with toxicity, and and so it does require, us clearing our channel with certain energetic hygiene practices, us eating really healthy, us doing nervous system work, which I know you do a lot of in your wealth work. So I would say that is the most important thing, is like really creating a vessel that can actually receive.
Yeah. And in my timeline too, like even when I look at like the 2020 experience, and I'm curious your thoughts with your own timeline of this. I feel like everything that was coming up and purging in that really difficult, dark time was actually opening me up to have a greater capacity to receive the version of myself that I am now, right? Like, I feel like those moments where everything is coming in and you're really cloudy, you're really overwhelmed, you're really chronically ill, you're really doubting yourself, you really have no direction or intuitive sense. Those moments of darkness, it's like everything is coming out, because you are preparing to hold a greater capacity for like a new version of yourself. And it's kind of this like death portal in essence. I'm wondering if you had the same approach back in 2020. Like when you look back, do you see it that way as well?
Totally. It was all preparing the vessel for sure. And when my abilities came back online more strongly in 2020, it was overwhelming. And all of these doubts, these fears, these insecurities, these shadows, like everything was coming out. And I think that's when a lot of people look outside themselves when it's actually like, no, go deeper within, purify the vessels being purified. And it does ask of us to really listen to what we're being asked to do in that moment. And oftentimes it's like not rush the process. It's really just to
Yeah.
be with the sensations, the emotional experience that's there. It's to work with mentors and medicine, whatever can support with holding this process. Cause it's sacred, it's a sacred and holy experience to go through these kinds of initiations. And they're always happening in the name of love and in our evolution, but it doesn't always feel that way. And so
No.
those are the moments where people are being purified, where they actually use substances more, or they become more addicted to shopping, or they consume more. So it's just like repressing all that energy that wants to come up even more. And so that's when it stays stuck. And so if you can, just be on the ride, be in the journey, like allow yourself to be purified, to totally fall apart sometimes,
Yeah.
like that's gonna leave you with a clear and pure and like, a clean vessel to actually be a hollow bone, for spirit to work through you. Because that's ultimately what it is. It's just love moving through us. And so it's like, yes, these are my gifts, but ultimately I choose to use them in a way of service for humanity. It's, even though I'm like, oh, I can track this and do that, it's less about that and just knowing that God is working through me and how can I be of service. So even if it's just emanating a certain frequency next to somebody at the grocery store, just embodying unconditional love. You'd be
Mm-hmm.
surprised. I sat in front of this guy the other day and we were just in like a moment of soul gazing and he just starts weeping. He's like, I've just never had anybody be this present with me. I've never felt this amount of love before, And so just really being able to hold love, to emanate love, to be a frequency of love. It's, the mystical things that we can do are fun, but that's the cherry. It's ultimately just like, how do we just embody love? How do we just show up in love in every single moment? And when you purify your vessel and when you totally surrender your identity, you can actually hold so much more light and so much more love in every moment. And that shifts people radically. We'd be very surprised.
Truly. Truly. Yeah, I think that the time too for me that I've been able to spend in connection to God and connection to myself, away from distractions, and also in deep connection to the earth, those are the times where my channel of love becomes fortified, right? We develop a sense of strength in that channel when we're in practice with self, when we're connecting to the earth, when we're really taking time to pay attention and attune to the body. So yeah, and this journey that you were on, like in Greece, and you're going on this pilgrimage, like what was the purpose and intention for you behind that once you discovered that you were going to Greece? Was it to connect to your ancestors and your lineage? Was it to connect to the codes of the land or learn from this teacher or everything? Like, yeah, what happened? Let's go back into that. I want to know.
Yeah, so it was really all of it. I would say that what I've learned is that I can have an intention and the field can work with that. And also, there can be medicine that's beyond that intention that I don't even know that it's going to happen for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
my intention was I'm just listening and I trust that the information and why I'm here is going to reveal itself. But I would say that because I had just discovered that I was Greek, because I've been going super deep on, mysticism and even Lemuria and Atlantis, these ancient civilizations that were really on the uprise of a real peak of enlightenment during, the last 26,000 year cycle of the Yuga. And so I just had thought, I'm gonna go, and I feel like something is gonna open up for me. I feel like there's gonna be a reclamation of self, but I didn't know that we were gonna go work with the land codes, that we were gonna like open up portals and that a lot of that stuff sounds very woo woo, but there's a lot of ancient wisdom. There's a lot of science behind power spots all over the world. That's why a lot of these sacred sites are built on these places, because they're vortexes. There's power spots. They hold certain nodes of the earth, who has its own chakra system and its own frequency and energy. So the intention really was, I'm listening. And then as I started leaning in, I could feel, okay, I'm really reclaiming something for myself. And it definitely felt related to the lost art of the feminine, like really understanding how we can work with energy, how we can work in the unseen realms, how we can even during that time, even though I was in Greece studying with this teacher, he was also really had a lot of codes around Hinduism. So working with the different goddesses. And even though I don't worship that, I go straight to God. It's so fascinating to me how there's so many different aspects of the feminine, So yeah, it was really all of it. But we were really like doing the work on the land, and I had felt, and this from Sedona, when you go, it takes you and it like,
you.
well, it takes you and it will recalibrate you and it'll be disorienting, and it's such a powerful experience. And so I know a lot of people are really being called to, whether it's Egypt or Peru or, Greece, especially a lot of people who have like deeper oracular gifts and psychic abilities. Going to these lands can really reactivate that within us. And so I always tell my clients and people in general, if you're feeling called to go to a land, it probably has some medicine for you. So that's ultimately just what I knew, is it had medicine for me. And what I didn't know was like what it would really turn on within my consciousness and my being, which was ultimately a lot of these deeper feminine oracular codes and wisdom, and just like, yeah, like really receiving that.
Oh, can you share a little bit about some of those codes that came through? Because I remember, watching you and seeing the embodiment that was being captured and shared was really inspiring for me to receive just during your time away. So yeah, anything you can share about that would be super beautiful for our audience too.
Totally. So every place I went was a little bit different. So when I went to Greece, it was really the oracular wisdom. When I was in Italy, it was really working with Kundalini. When I was in Portugal, I was kind of just like in this fun, free spirited. And then Germany, I worked a lot with like understanding like deeper, darker entity work, which was fascinating. So I would say that the oracular work, so for thousands of years, women have been seen as spiritual leaders. Women have been seen in more like matrilineal. Yeah, like matriarchal, matrilineal. I don't want to say matriarchal because that still suggests that there's a
The
hierarchy.
hierarchy.
Matrilineal, it's just like the lineage of feminine seers. And so in Europe, there was a lot of women who would hold these codes of being able to see spirit and to be able to. Oh, are you there?
I'm here. Oh,
Oh, okay, you froze.
no, I'm captivated and
Okay.
listening, but
Okay.
keep talking. I see
Okay,
I
yeah, your
froze.
video's a little frozen. Okay, let me take back in. So, for thousands of years, women have actually been seen as spiritual leaders, and women have been able to really tap into the unseen realm and be channels for the divine. So an
Mm,
oracle is essentially that. She is, and there wasn't just one oracle. The Oracle of Delphi had a variety of different individuals who would come in as Pythia and would hold a vessel, essentially a container, so that God, the divine, could speak through them.
wow.
So typically in Oracle of Delphi thousands of years ago, we would have governors, we would have spiritual leaders, we would have all sorts of individuals come to Greece, come to Delphi, and sit at the feet of an oracle and ask for guidance. So it was basically the holding the container and the transmission for God to speak through them. And when I went to the Oracle of Delphi, I really felt the energy and the timelines that I had been there. And I had felt that I had worked in these realms and on this land and with these women. And, I try not to get super lost in like in the past
Mm.
lifetime I did this thing. But, there
I
was a
appreciate that about you, by the way. It's just like realness, very much. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, we all have, I believe in reincarnation. I believe in past lives. And I believe that we are also here now. And so what do we do with that wisdom and how do we embody that frequency now and not get lost in that is actually more important. But I could tell, I could feel I was reclaiming those gifts And I knew that they had existed. I mean, I have a lot of psychic faculties, but an oracle is a little bit different where she specifically receives prophecy, like prophecy about the future, about like really being a channel for God to speak through her. And so when I was there, the codes that I was receiving was there was a lot that was getting moved in my throat because the lifetime that I had seen there, and we all have a lot of persecution wounds, but I had actually seen the lifetime where I had used these gifts and I had actually created a lot of destruction out of ignorance and lack of discernment around what I
Wow.
should share and what I shouldn't share. And so there was a lot of fear of speaking up and doing these things. So the codes that I had received a lot about, like opening up my throat chakra, really tuning into the energy and just being a hollow bone and open vessel. And then predominantly like receiving the prophecy. Like I've been receiving a lot of visions about the future and like things that we're going to be navigating and going through. And it has required me to be very discerning also about that, like what I share and what I don't share. Not because I'm trying to be some gatekeeper, but because you don't want to scare people. You don't want to be wrong. Like sometimes we can get in our own stories. So I would say those were some of the codes, a lot about throat activation, or a lot around prophecy, and really embodying the oracle, which is, in my opinion, just a channel for the divine. And it's less about like the psychic faculties of energy of tracking here or around working with spirits and just really going straight to God and just really receiving that stream of consciousness.
Yeah, like where are we going, what's happening, kind of that above overhead oracle energy. I think it's interesting that that's coming through for you in this cycle and era of your life because you're approaching your 40s, right? Are you in your late 30s as well? Where are you?
36. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So this is like kind of that time I feel like for a lot of us. I'm just a year ahead of you, but it's like we're kind of I think am I a year ahead of you or 2 years ahead of you? I have no fucking idea. I lose track of how old I am now. It's so bad. I'm like, yes, I'm somewhere around there. But I was in this era in this time. I really do feel like we are all maturing into our truth. Like that, I
Yeah.
think is happening so deeply for us. And it's really beautiful to see you here because you and I have known each other for a long time. It's been like many years now, 6, 7 years.
Yeah.
So, to see you where you are here is such a beautiful, beautiful evolution and a testament to the work that you've been doing, showing up for yourself and connecting and being a prayerful woman. That's what I see when I see you, a prayerful woman. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I want to honor that.
Thank you. I really receive that. And I do think there is this maturation process that's happening and giving us the ability to, yeah, really embody our true essence and really step into our dharmic path. We know whatever that is. And I've gotten a real opportunity to deconstruct, and so it feels so good to be in this place where there's so much less ego from the truest sense of ego, and so much less need for like validation and safety and just really kind of having this, yeah, unfuckable withness because I have such a profound relationship with God now.
Mm.
And I use that non-religiously, non-dogmatically. Like one of the things that I've been going super deep on right now is Christian mysticism and like Jesus's lost teachings
No
and
way.
like the non-canonical gospel. So that's been cool and recognizing for me, I believe that the kingdom is within. And so to have that time period where all this was happening and then this pilgrimage to like really reclaim myself, and I really feel like I'm here to bring forth these codes and to help people really remember their divinity and also go to the ancient texts because I've been studying them and I'm super excited about the time when I feel like it's ripe to share more of that. But it's been for me first, it's been like my relationship with my body, my relationship with God. And I appreciate, the reflection because I've seen your evolution too. And I'm
Mm,
just, when we are really able to witness a woman's becoming, it is like the
yeah,
most holiest of holies, where
truly.
she really blossoms and blooms and like what it really takes to step into that like, going from like maiden to mother has been an archetypal energy that I've been on too. And even though I'm not in partnership and not a mother, it's a certain frequency of the mature feminine that we hold that doesn't need anything outside of us that can really embody the wisdom, the medicine woman, the oracle,
Oof.
the priestess, all of these archetypes within us and hold them with utter and absolute reverence because that's what they require. So there's a lot of ancient wisdom being remembered on the planet and coming through us. And I think it requires us to be in deep devotion and prayer to actually steward it and to help other people awaken in, similar ways.
1000%. I feel it so strongly in myself. Like the mothering concept, it's interesting you're bringing that up because I was talking with Stephanie a couple of days ago. I have this bear that keeps coming up on my property and this like, oh my God, he's so cute. He comes every day. I feed him, which I shouldn't, but I feed him. And so he knows to come back. And um, yeah, it's just been this really interesting. You think mama bear, right? And you think about motherly energy. And when Stephanie and I were talking, we were having that conversation about mothering from the context of mothering our gifts to say, if you have a gift, you have to mother it. You have to protect it. You have to discern about who has access to it. You have to really be in reverence of what you're nurturing within yourself as a mother. And I think it's a new kind of energy that's coming through for myself as well, where I'm noticing the mother archetype in all areas of my life. Like, how do I mother my nervous system? How do I mother my home? How do I mother my art? Like, just really reflecting on that has been really moving through me as well this season. It's such a beautiful time. Truly.
Yeah, I feel that. Yeah, it's the divine feminine, I think, waking up on the planet. We've sort of had this very patriarchal way of living, and I'm not going to get super deep into that because that's irrelevant to me. It's what do we like? What are we going to do now? And so it's been this very masculine way of living, and the feminine, the divine mother, has really wanted us to like embody these qualities and these aspects of her, of compassioning, of kindness, of gentleness. And it's still, it some plays out in me where it's like I can be really hard on myself, and it does when I can like reparent myself and bring in that mother archetype and that energy. I just feel like a part of me comes alive. It's like a flower blooming where there's so much more access and availability to my divinity, to my love, to my heart. And so I'm so happy to hear that that's something that's awakening in you and something that you're nurturing. Because it's one thing to have the awareness of like the divine feminine is awakening on the planet, but and it sounds sexy, and it's, in my opinion, it's really not been super sexy to like have this awakening.
No.
But I think when you get to the other side, or you're towards, you're like a little bit beyond some of the initial parts of like that process, it's so beautiful and so glorious. And I can feel that in your system too, even just through our communication, where the way that you're holding your business, the way that you're taking care of yourself, I see that in you. And I'm so glad that you embody that frequency, because no matter what you choose to do with it, it's like, it's an energy, it's a frequency that you carry, and people can feel it. Embodiment doesn't lie.
No.
That when somebody shows up in that energy, that archetype, it is like nurturing, it's restorative. It's like, I just want to be around you. Yeah, because it's been so lost, so we're like, oh my God, yeah, let me come next to you.
I know. I'm like, let's snuggle. Let's have deep dive conversations. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful to be, and just to honor that as well. Like what's coming through, it's really beautiful to be in relationship with other women who are in that development as well. I think I hear that a lot from people where they look at the relationships I have, whether it's a friendship with you as an example, or, Stephanie and I, or, the many interpersonal relationships. I'm like, wow, I have such healthy, beautiful relationships with women who are healthy within themselves, who are doing their work and communicating in an effective way, and, prioritizing their needs and expressing what's true for them. And I think that is just such good medicine for the world also. Like, we can walk around and tell people what to do, but when they watch us connect and they watch us like in relation and they see that safety, that in my experience really did something for me when I could watch other women in those relationships and go, wow, oh, this is what it's supposed to be. We've been so conditioned about what relation to other women is. I remember when I was younger, the first introduction I got into relationships, I think I was like 5 or 6, and it was The Little Mermaid. I used to watch it on repeat, and the opening scene where all of these women gossiping about Ariel and how awful she was. And like, and it's all these different women. Go back and watch it. It'll blow your mind. You'll be like, oh, that's where I learned that, and they're oh, Ariel this, she's so flaky. Ariel that, da, 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 da. And then the whole movie's about her and, all the distortions of paradigm. Anyway, I know I'm getting off track, but just to say it's really beautiful that we've broken those paradigms to come into wholeness in our
Yeah.
relationship to women through ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can, in closing, I want to really honor that and kind of shift into that, final question we had mentioned, bringing up this wholeness within, this development of self, the strength in our channel, practices, rituals, things that we do to really develop our psychic gifts or come into more of a grounded presence or feel more safe in our I would maybe use language to say like safe in our gifts, safe in our needs being met as well. Like, let's talk about some of the development that you suggest to people you work with.
Yeah, totally. So I also have a gift for your audience if you want to include it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
your show notes, if that feels good for you. It's a
of course.
meditation that will walk people through this exact process because I receive this question so often and it's not a one thing, it's not like one thing and then you're good. But I think it's overall a cultivation over time, like we've been alluding to. And I think that the more you can be in devotion to it, the better. So I will say one of the simplest practices that you can do are you can, number one, just hold the intention that you want to do this work, right? Because I think our intention and our awareness creates the reality. And when you start to show up in devotion to this work, it's like the forces that work with you will come closer. They will support you more. So I would say just number one, you need to hold the intention that like this is a devotional practice I'm going into. Even create like a 40-day container or something for yourself to be in practice every day around this. But very practically, one of the things that I always teach people is to go into a meditation. And so oftentimes we we can outsource, and this is nothing's wrong with this, but like to tarot card decks and to do all that. And I love that stuff too. But ultimately, I think that our body has the answers, and the more we're willing to sit with our body and our sensation, because that's how we can track how spirit communicates with us, the better. So if you can go into a meditation and you can create a sacred space for yourself, like really, really, really do this. Like our rituals require us to be like present to them, right? Like it's not, if you want to like drink cacao and you just like sit there, it's one thing. But if you sit there and you pray and you like work with the medicine and you
Mm-hmm.
hold an intention and you slip it and you sit outside, it's like you're actually like gonna receive the medicine. So I think how we show up for that really matters. And so just get into a meditation, create a sacred space. If you have an altar, that's great. If you don't, just like light a candle and, take a couple of deep cleansing breaths. You can put on music or whatever. And just slowly start to go inward. So you just bring your awareness from out to in. And, some of this does require a meditation practice of some sort if you don't already have one. But again, the meditation will walk you through this. And then just tune into your body and just like listen to what's here. And you can slowly just be like, okay, I'm noticing right now I'm feeling a little anxious. I'm noticing right now that I'm feeling, I'm like in my mind. And bring forth a box. And if bring forth a box in your imagination and you just put the stuff in the box. So you put the fear that this isn't going to work in the box. You put the distraction from the social media in the box. You put everything else in the box. Close the box. And then you come back into yourself, and then with your intention, with your awareness, you just ask your body, show me what is a yes. And then you'll notice there will either be a sensation that surfaces, there will be a color, there will be a vision, you might hear a yes, and just to sit and not try to find it. Just allow the information to come through, allow it to emerge. So you say, okay, show me a yes. And then you sit with that. And then trust what comes through, because that's an important part. And then you ask your body, okay, show me a no. And then you sit and you listen to what comes through. And then show me unclear, maybe not yet. Those are kind of all encompassed in one thing. And then you listen to what comes through. And then you trust and you kind of write those down. And then, you'll come out of the meditation, you'll sit with that. And so most of the time, people will either receive, like, a lot of times when I was first tuning into my body, like using it as a pendulum, my body would swing to the left when it was a yes, and it would go to the right when it was a no. Then over time, when I was developing more of my different faculties, I started to receive visions, because it'll change. At the beginning, the gifts that you develop will change over time. So you might be developing in clairsentience first, and then over time you get more clairvoyant. So at the beginning, it's just show me what is a yes or no. And mine was to the left and to the right. And then an unclear was just still. My body didn't move at all. Some of my clients get visions. They'll get like a stop sign for a no and like a green light for a yes. They'll move forward for a yes and move back for a no. And then for 40 days, simple things. Is this water, you want to ask in a statement, this water is in my highest and best to drink? Yes. Okay. And then you trust that thing. So then you start to actually refine that practice over time. And it just requires you to actually do the thing regularly. And so some people, they're like, oh, I didn't get anything. Just do the meditation again.
Yeah.
Sit with it again. But ultimately trust the simplicity. And then over time, you'll start to know, once you're trained and you can trust the subtleties, you'll get bigger things. But I've noticed Spirit doesn't often give us like big flashes of like, here's the sign, do the thing. It's so subtle and so nuanced. And so in the meditation I offer, it's like you put the stuff in the box, you go through the practice, whatever your body says yes to, whatever your body says no to, trust that. And for 40 days, practice that. Is it like it's my highest and best to hang out with this person? No. Don't ask any questions. Don't worry about the story. Just don't do it. And then just write down what you notice. I realized 2 weeks later that that person, this was why they weren't aligned to hang out with, or this client, I got to know for that. And I just feel like that was right. Whatever it is, you just start to actually track the data, do the courageous thing, be in devotion to it, and actually take note of it. And for 40 days, you'll realize on the other side of that, you'll have a stronger sense of the subtleties. And then you can do it again, and then you can, develop other faculties. But in the most simplistic sense, I would say start there with that. Underneath that is, of course, like a meditation practice and regulating your nervous system. And, if you don't know how to do that, there's so many different ways, including breath work, co-regulating with somebody else, putting your feet on the earth, having boundaries with your phone.
Oh, yeah.
Is like the number one. I would say if you do nothing else, I would say have boundaries with your phone. My practice with this is I'm not on my phone for the first couple hours of the day, unless it's like an urgent text message. I don't go on social media for the first couple hours of the day and the last couple of hours of the day. And that to me has it'll be night and day. I honestly feel like so many of our dysregulation-ness in the world will just come from having better boundaries with technology and being in nature more. So it doesn't always need to be like an ice bath or, I have a lot of techniques that help my clients go through those emotions, but start with the simple things and then you can get more advanced over time.
There's this really well-known meditation teacher, Jack Cornfield, I think is his name, if I'm saying it right. And he tells this story in his book. I always found it so fascinating, where he was teaching a meditation class and the guy would come, one of the students would come, and he would set up his altar and put all his crystals down and his feathers and his things, and he would make the whole setup. And then he would sit in his meditative practice and twiddle with his crystals and grab the tissues and all these things. And so he noticed this guy was not really getting anywhere in his practice, right? And he was just doing the thing with all the tools. And the guy was frustrated. He said, I don't understand why I'm not feeling anything, or I'm not able to connect. And so the teacher, Jack, he's like, okay, I want you to come back tomorrow. But when you come back tomorrow, bring nothing. And so 5 minutes into the meditation, the guy's like, oh my God. And he's like having this full blown emotional response. It's just such a funny story for me. It always reminds me how the simple element of, stripping everything away, all the distraction, can really actually be the only medicine we need to find our center. And technology is one of those things. I'm the same way. So in the morning, I don't look at my phone for the first 2 or 3 hours, depending on if I'm up at 5 or 6. And then at night by 5 p.m., I put my phone on the charger in the kitchen and I don't touch it until I'm waking up the next morning. So yeah, I think that's a discipline or a devotion that I think really has a huge difference. But what I guess my final, kind of follow-up thought here, people are very disconnected from their bodies. Yeah. Like for years, we've been through patterns of abuse or trauma, and we've formed this belief that our body's innate cues are wrong or not worthy of being met or acknowledged. And, I think I would just like in closing, like, do you have any words for the woman who feels like this is a really long journey to connect back into her intuition that lives in the body and her truth that lives in the body after many, many years of maybe feeling like she doesn't even know what that connection even really is or means? What would your advice be to her?
Yeah, it's a real journey. It is a real journey. We've been programmed to believe that to live in the mind. And so it's not an overnight thing. I've been doing this work for many years, and I still have moments where I'm like up here living. It's like I'm like numb. Even the other day, I was going through like a big emotional experience, and it had been days that I'm just like feeling off and funky, and like I didn't even recognize I had a huge emotion to process. So there's a lot of embodiment work is the foundation of intuitive development. It's why I teach both. A lot of people want the psychic abilities, but I would say that at the core is really your ability to be in your body. I don't teach it from the outside. I teach it from the in. And so, there's no real one way. Everybody's body like needs different support. I would say, some of us need physical holding. That was a really big thing for me, feeling safe to be in my body was like somebody actually holding me, because I didn't really receive a lot of that as a child, And so I would say a handful of things, some of which are just that it is a real process and a journey, and to be really kind and gentle to yourself, and to make space for it. To make space to connect with your body, to recognize it's a relationship. If you want to get to know anyone, what would you do? You would, you'd hang out with them. So what does it look like on a Sunday to put your phone away and just to connect with your body, just to like lay on the floor and feel what she feels like, to put on some music and listen to what she wants to listen to have nourishing food and feel what like brings her alive. And so be really curious about what your body needs. Make time to actually spend time with her and to cherish her, to adore her, to adorn her, to, take the baths, like listen to the ways that your body speaks to you. So, and ultimately, like, again, there's so many ways that you can do this, but slow down. Like, just slow down your internal landscape. When you get up in the morning, notice where you rush, where you get on your phone, notice where you're getting ready, you need to do things. When you're talking, even, notice where you can just slow down, and you will realize that your body will give you so much more information because you're being really present. You're being with her. So there's a lot of practices and tools, of course, but I would say we're going to start simple, because that's where I think the real magic is just to, really slow down, be more easeful, be more graceful, create a container and a relationship for her, and enjoy getting to know her, enjoy what she likes. Like, it can be a fun little adventure, and it's a forever journey of becoming. There's nowhere to arrive to. One of the woman that I love, Ezra Becker, she talks about there's so far to go in the spiritual journey and nowhere to get to. So if you just hold that duality of like, there's so much more to experience and to develop, and also like, I'm taking my time because there's really nowhere to get to.
As we wind down this episode of the World Needs Your Medicine podcast, I just want to say thank you so much for listening. It's such an honor to bring you the most incredible guests here on the show. And if you have suggestions, ideas, or things that you would like to contribute, feel free to email us, press@laurenoflove.com. In listening to today's conversation, if there was something that really spoke to you, I invite you to share this conversation with somebody that you love. Talk about it with your friends. Post the replay on your social media platforms. You can even tag us at The World Needs Your Medicine on Instagram. And at any time, it would mean so much to us if you could leave a review on the show. If you're listening on Spotify, just put 5 stars and write something heartfelt on this particular episode if it really spoke to you. If you're on iTunes, all you have to do is just press review and leave your heartfelt reflection in the notes. And if you're listening on YouTube, please come subscribe and continue to follow along for the video format of our show. I'm so happy you're here. Again, I'm Lauren Eliz Love, and to learn more about me, you can go to Lauren of Love on Instagram or laurenoflove.com. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for showing up to do your work. As you grow, stretch, change, and expand, the world needs your medicine, and you're going to start to discover that. So if at any point you feel inspired to join our community, you can go ahead and visit laurenoflove.com/app. This is the sanctuary. I show up and share my courses, my programs, and everything I teach in the online space. That's laurenoflove.com/app. APP. Thank you for being here, guys. I'll see you on another episode very soon.